April 30th, 2009. 6:41 a.m. Auburn Hills, Michigan. The parking lot outside Chrysler's headquarters is unusually quiet. Inside, fluorescent lights hum above a conference table stacked with legal briefs. The television in the corner is tuned to CNBC. The ticker scrolls in red. See Chrysler files for Chapter 11. Outside, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hovers around 8,000, down from its October 9th, 2007 peak of 14,164.53. General Motors is days away from its own collapse. Ford stock had fallen below $2 in November 2008 before clawing back. Chrysler doesn't have that kind of margin for error. It has $39 billion in liabilities. It has factories bleeding cash. It has suppliers demanding payment. And it has a deadline. President Barack Obama has just given the company 30 days to reach a restructuring agreement or face liquidation. The smell in the room isn't oil or steel, it's fear. Because this isn't Chrysler's first funeral. And it won't be its last. To understand how Chrysler survived multiple bankruptcies, you have to go back to the winter of 1979. Detroit, Michigan. 3 a.m. the assembly lines are slowing. Gasoline prices are high after the 1973 oil embargo and the 1979 energy crisis. Chrysler is drowning in red ink. The company posted a $1.1 billion loss in 1978, followed by another $1.7 billion in 1979. Banks won't extend credit. The federal government faces a choice: let Chrysler collapse, costing an estimated 200,000 jobs including suppliers, or intervene. On December 21, 1979, President Jimmy Carter signs the Chrysler Corporation Loan Guarantee Act, authorizing $1.5 billion in federal loan guarantees. It is the first time the U.S. government directly intervenes to save a major automaker. At the center of the storm is Lee Iacocca, former Ford executive, fired by Henry Ford II in 1978 and hired by Chrysler the same year. Iacocca is part engineer, part salesman, part politician. He slashes costs, closes plants, forces concessions from unions, sells assets. He also launches the K-Car platform, fuel-efficient, front-wheel drive vehicles that align with post-crisis consumer demand. And then comes the masterstroke, the minivan. Introduced in 1983, the Dodge Caravan and Plymouth Voyager redefine suburban America. They become instant hits. On July 13, 1983, Chrysler repays its government-backed loan 7 years early. Iacocca becomes a national hero. But here's the buried truth. The 1979 bailout saved Chrysler. It also normalized federal rescue. A precedent was set. Fast forward to November 12, 1998. Chrysler merges with Daimler-Benz in what is billed as a merger of equals. Daimler Chrysler is born. In reality, it is a takeover. Cultural clashes erupt almost immediately. German executives impose control. American divisions feel sidelined. By 2001, Chrysler is hemorrhaging money again. Daimler Chrysler reports a $1.5 billion loss in its Chrysler division in 2001. Factories in Detroit flicker with uncertainty. The marriage was supposed to create a global powerhouse. Instead, it created confusion. In May 2007, Daimler sells an 80.1% stake in Chrysler to Cerberus Capital Management, a private equity firm, for $7.4 billion. This is where the story turns darker. Private equity doesn't buy companies for sentiment. It buys them for extraction. Cerberus loads Chrysler with debt. Restructuring plans stall. Product pipelines weaken. Then the ground shifts. On October 9, 2007, the Dow hits its historic peak. 6 months later, the financial system begins to implode. By September 15, 2008, Lehman Brothers files for bankruptcy. Credit markets freeze. Auto loans dry up. Gasoline prices spike above $4 per gallon in mid-2008, crushing demand for Chrysler's high-margin trucks and SUVs. The business model collapses. On December 19, 2008, the U.S. Treasury extends $4 billion in emergency loans to Chrysler under TARP. It's not enough. By April 2009, Chrysler's cash reserves are nearly exhausted. Negotiations with bondholders stall. President Obama gives Chrysler a 30-day ultimatum on March 30, 2009, restructure or liquidate. 30 days later, on April 30, 2009, Chrysler files for Chapter 11. But unlike a traditional bankruptcy, this one is surgical. A prearranged deal with Fiat SPAE emerges. Sergio Marchionne, Fiat CEO, sees opportunity in the chaos. Under the deal, Fiat receives a 20% stake in the new Chrysler in exchange for technology and management expertise. The United Auto Workers Retiree Healthcare Trust receives 55% ownership. The U.S. Treasury takes 8%. Cerberus is largely wiped out. Old Chrysler dies. New Chrysler is born. The deal closes in just 42 days, one of the fastest major bankruptcies in U.S. history. Behind the speed is urgency. Suppliers were days from shutting off part shipments. If that happened, the entire supply chain would collapse. This wasn't just about Chrysler. It was about Detroit. Meanwhile, General Motors files for bankruptcy on June 1, 2009. Ford, under Alan Mulally, avoids filing but posts a $14.7 billion loss in 2008. The American auto industry is on life support. But here's the question. Why did Chrysler keep collapsing? The answer lies in identity. Unlike General Motors, which once controlled nearly half the US market, or Ford, which maintained consistent brand equity, Chrysler oscillated between reinvention and desperation. It chased trends. It relied heavily on trucks and SUVs. It struggled with consistent global scale. After the 2009 bankruptcy, Sergio Marchionne takes control operationally. He is ruthless. He slashes unprofitable models. He doubles down on Jeep and Ram, brands with global appeal and strong margins. In 2014, Fiat completes its acquisition of Chrysler, forming Fiat Chrysler Automobiles FCA. The strategy works for a time. Jeep becomes a global powerhouse, Ram trucks climbing US sales rankings. But Chrysler itself, the namesake brand, atrophies. By the late 2010s, Chrysler's lineup shrinks to just two models, the Chrysler 300 sedan and the Pacifica minivan. The irony is brutal. The company that once symbolized American resilience becomes a badge on a handful of vehicles. Then, in January 2021, FCA merges with France's PSA Group to form Stellantis. Another merger. Another identity shift. Another attempt at scale. The pattern repeats. Crisis. Rescue. Consolidation. Rebranding. Chrysler survives not because it dominates, but because it attaches itself to larger entities. It survives through reinvention by absorption. But here's the smoking gun. Chrysler's collapses were not random. They were the product of structural dependency on credit-fueled truck sales and short-term financial engineering. In 1979, it nearly died from product misalignment and oil shocks. In 2009, it nearly died from over-leveraging and credit collapse. Each time, government intervention played a role. Each time, the narrative was framed as temporary crisis. But the underlying vulnerability, thin margins outside trucks and limited global diversification, persisted. The American dream was built on accessible credit and upward mobility. Chrysler rode that wave. When credit tightened, Chrysler suffocated. And yet the brand still exists. Drive through suburban America today, and you'll still see Pacificas in school parking lots. Ram trucks on highways, Jeep Wranglers climbing trails. The Auburn Hills headquarters remains active under Stellantis management. But the original Chrysler Corporation, the independent titan, is gone. What survives is a fragment integrated into a multinational conglomerate. Lee Iacocca died on July 2, 2019. Sergio Marchionne died unexpectedly on July 25, 2018. The men who engineered Chrysler's resurrections are gone. The factories in some parts of Detroit stand empty reminders of earlier eras. But production lines elsewhere hum under new corporate banners. Chrysler survived multiple bankruptcies not because it was invincible, but because it was willing to dissolve, to shrink, to merge, to surrender autonomy in exchange for survival. It became a corporate phoenix. But each rebirth cost something. Jobs, identity, control. And the next time the credit market sees, if auto loan debt, now over $1.5 trillion in the US, begins to crack, the same vulnerabilities may resurface. Because Chrysler's survival was never about strength. It was about timing. And timing in American industry is everything. Next time, we uncover who really owns the American auto empire now.